1. The independent dealer who knew your bike. He knew your name when you walked in. He stocked the parts for your specific machine without charging $45 for a diagnostic appointment to determine what you needed. Between 2000 and 2024, 40% of independent motorcycle dealers in America closed. The floor plan financing system, 8 to 10% interest on every unsold unit, made survival impossible. The man who knew your name could not survive the system that replaced him. 2. The Chilton Manual. $8 at the auto parts store. Torque specs, wiring diagrams, carburetor settings, valve clearances, everything your specific bike would ever need. You kept it in the garage with grease on the cover. You did not need a dealer. That complete independence is what modern electronic complexity was specifically designed to end. 3. Kmart's motorcycle section. Helmets starting at $15. Gloves for $4.99. Riding boots under $20. Chain lube, oil filters. Everything you needed at prices. A working-class rider paid without a second thought. In 2005, a hedge fund manager named Eddie Lampert bought Kmart and Sears for $11 billion and spent 15 years extracting value from both. By 2018, Sears filed for bankruptcy. That aisle does not exist anymore, and it was not an accident. 4. The smell of a cold engine warming up, oil burning off the exhaust, a slight richness from the choke. The specific combination of petroleum and metal and heat announcing the machine was alive. If you grew up in a house where someone rode, that smell is hardwired into your memory as the smell of Saturday morning. Nobody has ever bottled it, and nobody ever will. 5. Gas at 36 cents a gallon. In 1970, you pulled up to a pump and paid 36 cents per gallon. You could fill a CB750 tank for under $3 and ride anywhere. Then, 1973 arrived, and OPEC turned off the tap, and the world changed. The industry has spent 50 years making sure that window never opens again. 6. The kickstart. Left foot on the peg. Decompress. Ease to top dead center. Full stroke. The shovelhead rewarded the rider who understood it and punished the one who did not. When it fired, the mechanical sound of combustion catching in a cold, air-cooled V-twin was something you felt in your chest before you heard it with your ears. Every electric start-only bike built since 1980 eliminated something that cannot be replicated by a button. 7. The Bell Star helmet. Fiberglass shell. Snap visor. $30 to $60 in 1973. The helmet was worn by racers and long-distance tourers who understood that the equipment between your head and the road deserved serious engineering. Bell today is owned by Strategic Value Partners, a private equity firm that paid $1.125 billion for Bell, Fox Racing, Camelback, and 9 other brands in October 2024. The name is the same. The ownership is not. 8. The Honda CB750. It arrived in 1969 for $1,495. 4 cylinders, a disc brake, electric start, 70 horsepower. It ended the British motorcycle industry and forced Harley into a decade-long rethinking of everything. If you rode in the early 1970s, you either owned one, wanted one, or knew someone who had one. The industry has never returned to that price point, adjusted for wages. 9. Sturgis at 3,000 riders. In 1970, Sturgis had roughly 3,000 attendees. Flat track race, hill climb, a few vendors. You could camp in a field for free and know every rider around you by name by Sunday. By the end of the decade, it was 30,000. By 2000, it was 400,000. Today, the camping fees alone would have bought a used bike in 1972. The rally still exists. What it was does not. 10. The tool roll under the seat. Adjustable wrench, pliers, screwdrivers, spare plug, tire plugs, a short length of wire. That specific weight under the seat was reassuring in a way a roadside assistance number will never be. You were not calling anyone. You were fixing it yourself, on the side of the road, in whatever weather was present. That competence was the result of knowing your machine completely, which was possible in the 1970s because your machine was knowable. 11. The Kawasaki Z1, 1973, 903 cubic centimeters, double overhead cam, 82 horsepower, 539 pounds, $1,895. The fastest production motorcycle in the world. A quarter mile in 12.5 seconds at 110 miles per hour. Motorcycle News Bike of the Year from 1973 through 1976. That much machine for that little money has never been equaled since. 12. Riding in the rain because you had to be somewhere. The motorcycle was transportation, not recreation. And transportation runs in all weather. You knew which roads stayed slick longest after rain. You knew the first 10 minutes on a dry road were more dangerous than heavy rain on a wet one, oil rising to the surface. You learned that not from a safety course, but from experience, a harder teacher and a more permanent one. 13. The Sears Craftsman Socket Set. $15 to $30. Every size you needed. A lifetime guarantee. Sears honored without question. Every oil change and valve adjustment you did in the 1970s was done with these tools. Sears sold motorcycles directly from 1951 through 1963 under the Allstate brand. The set you bought in 1971 probably still works. The store that sold it is gone. 14. The CB radio mount. Channel 19 for highway information. Trucker handles. Weather from the other direction. Kojak with a Kodak meant radar ahead. Bear in the air meant a patrol helicopter. You were never alone on the road with a CB radio. You were part of a moving community that materialized from static and dissolved when you left range. 15. The price of a new Sportster. Harley-Davidson Sportster, XLCH, $1,995. Approximately 1 month's wages for a working-class American in an industrial city. Today, the entry-level Sportster S starts at $14,999. Median wages have not increased by 700%. The motorcycle has not become 700% better. What changed was a deliberate corporate decision made in the 1980s to reposition Harley from a working-class machine to a premium lifestyle product. If these are landing for you, the 2026 Motorcycle Buyer's Bible was built for exactly the kind of rider who remembers when the industry actually served him. Independent data, no manufacturer money, no dealer relationships. It was $97, now $9. Link in the description. 16. The Triumph Bonneville. Before the British motorcycle industry collapsed under its own management failures, the Bonneville was what every rider who had not yet bought a Harley was considering. It was a 650 cubic centimeter parallel twin, higher and more urgent than American Iron. Steve McQueen rode one in The Great Escape. Evel Knievel started on Triumphs. The name still exists under new ownership. the machine that came from the Meriden factory, built by workers who went on strike to save their own jobs, is unrepeatable. 17. Knowing which roads the police worked. Not from a radar detector, not from an app, from experience, and from riders coming the other way who flashed their lights. 2 quick flashes meant slow down. A single long flash meant all clear. A hand pointed down meant police ahead. This system was entirely informal, entirely effective, and required no technology beyond the lights already on the machine. 18. The campsite at 3 in the morning. No reservation, no booking app. A flat piece of ground away from the road. If it rained, you got wet. If it was cold, you found an extra layer. What you carried was all you had, and what you had was enough. Every curated motorcycle campground with hookups and scheduled events is a solution to a problem that self-reliant riders from the 1970s were not having. 19. The way another rider's nod felt. 2 fingers off the left grip. A slight incline of the head. Acknowledgement from someone you had never met and would never meet again. You were both out there on 2 wheels, subject to the same weather and the same road, and that shared condition was enough. The motorcycle community of the 1970s had no social media and no forums. It had the road and the nodi. 20. The diner that opened at 5 in the morning. Not a chain. A specific building on a specific highway that had been there since the Korean War. A counter that seated 12. A cook making the same egg and toast breakfast since Eisenhower. The man behind the counter poured your coffee and left you alone, and that was everything you needed at 6 in the morning on the road. 21. Adjusting the carburetor by ear. You didn't need a laptop. You listened to the engine at idle, at partial throttle, and at full throttle. And you learned what rich, lean, correct, and transitional sounded like in your specific engine. You turned the needle clip or air screw by increments until the sound told you it was right. Every fuel-injected motorcycle with a sealed ECU produced since 1990 was specifically designed to make that diagnosis impossible without dealer equipment. 22. Easy Riders Magazine. It was founded in 1971. It was the first magazine for chopper culture and for independent riders, rather than the AMA mainstream. It told readers what was actually happening in motorcycle culture, rather than what the manufacturers wanted them to know. At its peak in the mid-1970s, it was selling over 200,000 copies a month to an audience that felt seen for the first time. That function, telling riders the truth the industry kept quiet, is what this channel is attempting in 2026. 23. Rebuilding carburetors on the kitchen table. Float, needle, main jet, pilot jet. Every component arranged on a cloth in the order it came off. Cleaned in carb cleaner. Every passage blown clear. Reassembled by knowledge, not by guesswork. You started the bike and listened to whether it ran correctly at idle, at transition, at full throttle. That complete diagnostic cycle cannot be performed on a fuel-injected engine without a laptop and the manufacturer's software license. 24. The Harley shovelhead oil leak. Every shovelhead owner understood and made peace with the evidence his machine left wherever it was parked. The oil on the garage floor was information. Specific locations told you exactly which seals needed attention. The joke in the community was that you knew when you had a real problem because the puddles stopped forming. A dry shovelhead meant it was out of oil. 25. the first long solo trip. You planned it on a paper map. You told someone roughly where you were going and roughly when you expected to be back. Then you left, and there was no way to contact you until you returned or called from a payphone. The self-reliance that journey required, navigating by road signs, maintaining your own machine, solving your own problems, produced a specific confidence that is impossible to download from an app. 30 things in, and the pattern is clear. Everything on this list was made harder, more expensive, or impossible by the same set of corporate decisions. The 2026 Motorcycle Buyer's Bible documents exactly what the current industry is doing to the rider right now. It was $97. Now, $9. Link in the description. 26. The sound of straight pipes, not the baffled, emissions-regulated exhaust note of a modern machine. Open headers. The specific mechanical statement an air-cooled V-twin makes when nothing stands between combustion and atmosphere. You could hear a shovelhead with straight pipes 3 blocks away. That sound has been regulated out of existence in most jurisdictions. What replaced it is quieter and less honest. 27. Reading the weather by the sky. No radar. No app. You watched the western sky and learned the cloud formations. High thin cirrus meant rain in 24 hours. Building cumulus meant 2 hours. Anvil-topped cumulonimbus meant 15 minutes. You pulled over when the anvils appeared and waited under a gas station overhang and talked to whoever else had pulled over for the same reason. Weather was something you read rather than something an algorithm delivered to your wrist. 28. The genuine leather jacket. Not a fashion accessory. Protection. Horsehide or cowhide. Minimum 1.2 millimeters thick. Cut for a rider in the riding position. It smelled of leather, oil, the road, and whatever weather it had been through. You broke it in over months until it conformed to your specific body. A properly broken-in leather jacket from the 1970s is still serviceable protection today. 29. Points and timing. You set the gap with a feeler gauge. You set the timing with a strobe light, or by ear if you did not have the strobe. The ignition system of your motorcycle was entirely mechanical, inspectable, measurable, adjustable, and repairable with tools that cost under $20. The transition to electronic ignition was the first step toward a diagnostic architecture that required specialized equipment you did not own and could not reasonably acquire. 30. The guy who had been riding since Korea. Every town had one. He had been riding since the early 1950s, and he knew things no manual had recorded because they had been transmitted to him personally by someone who had been riding since the 1930s. He taught you what he knew without charging for it and without making you feel ignorant for not knowing it yet. That oral transmission of mechanical knowledge in person at the garage was the educational infrastructure of 1970s motorcycle culture. The YouTube tutorial that replaced it is more accessible and less thorough. 31. The Yamaha RD350. A 2-stroke parallel twin, 347 cubic centimeters, 39 horsepower, 338 pounds. Priced at $995. New in 1973. It was the fastest machine in its class. It changed direction faster than bikes twice its size. It ran in the upper reaches of its power band with a specificity of mechanical communication that 4-stroke engines could not match, for a machine that embarrassed much more expensive competition. 32. The campfire and the rain. You were wet, and the fire was smoking, and the tent was dripping, and you were somewhere in the middle of a state you had never been to before, with people you had met 48 hours ago. The coffee was hot, and the conversation was about machines and roads. That combination, discomfort and freedom, is what motorcycle camping in the 1970s produced. The curated campground has solved the discomfort. It has not been able to replicate what the discomfort was part of. 33. The regional rally. Not Sturgis. Not Daytona. A county fairground 2 states away. 300 riders. Flat track racing in the afternoon. Swap meet in the morning. By Sunday, you had exchanged information with 6 people whose bikes you admired, heard 3 stories you would repeat for a year, and bought a used part at a fair price because both parties were riders who understood what it was worth. Rider to rider. No dealer markup. No manufacturer involvement. That was the economic heartbeat of the 1970s motorcycle culture. 34. The Saturday that had nowhere to be. No destination. No GPS route uploaded in advance. You chose a direction, and you let the road decide. You stopped when something interested you, and you moved when you were ready. You arrived somewhere you had not intended by mid-afternoon. You ate whatever the local diner had, and then you started back. You still remember where certain of those Saturdays ended up. You could not have predicted any of them on Friday night. 35. On any Sunday. Bruce Brown's 1971 documentary showed the American public that motorcyclists were not what Hollywood had been telling them. They were weekend racers, desert riders, and dirt track competitors who happened to love their machines. It is credited with driving a significant increase in motorcycle sales in the early 1970s. It cost almost nothing to make. It told the truth about what riding was. Those 2 facts are probably connected. 36. Pointing out road hazards to following riders. Left hand straight down meant debris on the left. Right foot out meant hazard on the right. Both feet out meant slow down. You learned these signals before your first group ride and used them without thinking every time. The group looked after itself through a shared language of body position and hand signals that required no technology and no training beyond the first time someone showed you what they meant. 37. The specific vibration of an air-cooled engine at highway speed. Not the turbine-smooth silence of a modern water-cooled engine. The purposeful mechanical pulse of air-cooled iron at 3,000 revolutions per minute. You felt it through the seat, through the pegs, through the bars. A change in the vibration pattern told you something before any warning light appeared, before any symptom a less attentive rider would notice. That conversation between rider and machine is something modern engineering has specifically eliminated, in the belief that smooth and quiet is superior to communicative and honest. 38. The night ride. The road after midnight, when the traffic had cleared and the air had dropped to the point where you needed the jacket buttoned all the way. The headlight beam was the only thing between you and the black of an unlit rural highway. You read the road at the edge of your vision, anticipating what the beam would reveal in the next second. That specific alertness, the heightened presence that night riding on an unlit road demands, is the closest thing to complete awareness that most people will ever experience. 39. The chain tool. You carried one. You knew what a tight chain sounded like, and what a stretched chain looked like, and how many miles you could push it before adjustment was mandatory. You adjusted it yourself on the side of the road with the tools you were carrying. The O-ring chain, which significantly extended maintenance intervals, was still being developed in the early 1970s. Your chain required attention every few hundred miles, and you gave it that attention because the alternative was the chain coming off at highway speed. 40. The specific moment you decided you were a rider. Not a motorcyclist, not an enthusiast, a rider. The moment when the identity settled and you understood this was not a phase, but a permanent part of who you were. For some of you, it was the first solo trip. For some, it was the first time you repaired your own machine on the road. For some, it was the first nod that came back, and you understood the silent community you had joined. That moment is not available for sale. It cannot be packaged into a lifestyle product. It happened once, to you specifically, on a specific road in a specific year, and nothing since has been quite like it. I drive a 2000 Ford Ranger with 340,000 miles on it. I paid cash. I know every sound it makes and what every sound means. That relationship between a man and his machine, built over years of attention and the competence that comes from not having the option of calling someone else, is what the 1970s motorcycle culture produced in quantity. These 40 things are not gone because better things replaced them. They are gone because corporate consolidation, private equity acquisition, and the deliberate repositioning of the motorcycle from working-class transportation to a luxury lifestyle product made them economically and mechanically impossible to sustain. The 2026 Motorcycle Buyer's Bible is built to close that gap. Independent data, no industry money, no manufacturer relationships. It was $97, now $9. Link in the description. Last mention. Drop your number. Which one hit the hardest? I want to know. Stay safe. Ride smart. Know your machine the way you once did.